Oh, hey, Meg.
Oh, hey.
Happy spooky season. Want to hear some spooky music?
Oh.
Does that set the mood for this another spooky season episode?
Yeah.
I think it does. I've only used it on
Did you
3
just make
different...
up a word?
Yeah.
This another?
It's another. We're back. Your Townians, we can't thank you enough for coming back today. We're going to continue with some spooky season in an episode that Meg has no clue where or what about. And it's not a super far back one that we've done before, but I think it's fitting for spooky season. So picture a quiet mountain town, a place where families go to escape, to find peace. But in 1981, Cabin 28 in Keddie, California, became the scene of one of the most gruesome unsolved murder mysteries in American history. 4 lives were shattered, a young girl vanished, and the walls of that cabin still whisper secrets. For over 4 decades, the shadow of the Keddie Murders has loomed large, unsolved, until now. Did we break the case? Probably not. But either way, we're going to dive into the chilling details of the brutal crime. Remember, some horrors never fade. Welcome to the Your Town podcast. This is the story of the Keddie Murders.
Ooh.
I like that. Should we do the intro? Speaking of creepy.
Yeah, sure.
All right. When should we do it?
Right now.
This spooky season is a good one. This is our first one. We're going to do it again next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sometimes, though, in an episode, the darkness kind of creeps in. Is everybody ready to face it? Meg, you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we're ready. Now, obviously, the voice you're hearing is me. It's Matt. I also go by Beard Laws. Joining me, as always, is Meg. We're ready.
Hey.
I'm ready. Let's go. Nestled in the Sierra Nevada mountains, surrounded by trees and isolation, sits a tiny vacation community called Keddie. I am saying that right? Keddie?
I would think so.
If not, I'm sorry to the town of Keddie. But it's in California. 1981, this peaceful getaway would become the site of one of the most gruesome and chilling unsolved murder cases in history, obviously known as the Keddie Murders. For over 4 decades, the shadow of death has hung over Cabin 28, leaving behind unanswered questions and a trail of horror. Throughout this episode, we're going to take you kind of through the details of the crime, the investigation, and all these theories that still haunt investigators to this day. And as always, viewer and listener discretion is advised. Want to go to July?
Yeah.
Glenna Susan Sue Sharp, born March 29, 1945 in Springfield, Massachusetts, made a major life change. She separated from her husband, James Sharp, packed up her 5 children, and left Connecticut, heading west to Northern California, where her brother Don was living at the time. Upon arriving, Sue initially rented a smaller kind of trailer at the Claremont Trailer Village in Quincy, which her brother had previously occupied. But by the fall, she found a new home, Cabin 28, in the quiet railroad town of Keddie, nestled right in that Sierra Nevada. Not the beer. Isn't there a beer Sierra Nevada? Green label, little bottle.
Yeah.
The larger home had become available when Plumas County Sheriff Sylvester Douglas Thomas, that's a long name, moved out. Sue settled there with her 15-year-old son, John, 14-year-old daughter Sheila, 12-year-old daughter Tina, and her 2 younger sons, Rick and Greg, who were 10 and 5. April 11th, 1981, around 11:30 a.m., Sue, Sheila, and Greg left the Meeks family house to pick up Rick from baseball tryouts at Gansner Field in Quincy. On their way, they saw John and his friend Dana Wingate hitchhiking near the canyon entrance and gave them a ride back to Keddie, which is about 6 miles away. Can you imagine a time where hitchhiking was like, yeah, go ahead, kids. Go, just hitchhike, you'll make it. Then later, around 3:30 p.m., John and Dana returned to Quincy, hitchhiking once again. Witnesses spotted them in the downtown area shortly afterward. That evening, Sheila planned to stay overnight with the Seabolt family who lived next door in number 27, while Sue stayed home with Rick, Greg, and their friend Justin Smart. Sheila left cabin number 28 shortly after 8 p.m. to head to the Seabolts. Tina, who had been watching TV with the Seabolt family, returned to her own cabin at around 9:30 p.m. after asking for the time. The night grows quiet. No one could have just predicted or known what horrors inside cabin 28 would soon begin. Following morning, around 8 a.m., Sheila returned home from the sleepover, but as she approached number 28, she was met with a scene that no 14-year-old should ever have to witness. The cabin door was open. Stepping inside the living room, Sheila discovered the bodies of her mother, Sue, her brother John, and his friend Dana. All three had been brutally murdered, bound with medical tape and electrical cords, and viciously attacked. The bodies were bloodied, and signs of an intense struggle were evident. Tina was absent from the home, while the three younger children, Rick, Greg, and their friend Justin, were found unharmed in a nearby bedroom. Upon discovering the horrific scene, Sheila ran back to the Seabolt's house for help. Jamie Seabolt, a member of the family, climbed through the bedroom window to rescue Rick, Greg, and Justin. He later admitted to briefly enter the house through the back door to check if anyone was still alive, potentially contaminating crucial evidence in the process.
Yikes.
But at least he tells them, I guess, even if it's a little bit later. But, I mean, you're going to do the right thing. If you contaminate, unfortunately, you're going to see if anybody else is there and needs help. But the murders of Sue, John, and Dana, they were brutal, Meg. And obviously, this is going to get a little graphic, but I left out a lot of graphicness. 2 bloody knives and a hammer were actually found at the scene. Blood spatter evidence suggested that all 3 murders occurred in the living room. Sue was found lying on her side near the living room sofa, partially clothed and gagged with a blue bandana and her own clothing secured with tape. She had suffered multiple injuries, including a stab wound to her chest and a severe wound to her throat. Additionally, a mark on her head suggested she had been struck with, they think, the butt of like a BB or a pellet rifle. John's throat had been slashed, and Dana had sustained several head injuries as well as signs of strangulation. But John and Dana were struck with a hammer, causing, obviously, a ton of trauma. Autopsy reports concluded that Sue and John actually died from a combination of the knife wounds and that blunt force trauma, while Dana's cause of death was asphyxiation. Law enforcement, they get to the scene. They descend on house number 28. What they found only deepened the mystery. Blood covered with the walls, the floor. But, we keep saying that just the brutal attack, indicated that it just wasn't, simple robbery gone wrong. Sheila, who had spent the night next door with the Seabolt family, reported hearing no disturbances at all during the night. However, there was a couple that was living pretty close by, number 16. They were
Awakened.
Wow, why did that trip me up? I was going to say awakened. Either way, they got woke up around 1:15 a.m. by what sounded like muffled screams. Martin Smart, a neighbor and one of the primary suspects, told investigators that a claw hammer had mysteriously gone missing from his house. Detectives interviewed the Smarts along with a number of other locals. Several witnesses, including a member of the Seabolt family, recalled seeing a green van parked outside the Sharps' home around 9 p.m. on the night of the murders. Justin Smart, who had been staying at the Sharps' home that night, gave conflicting accounts of the events. Initially, he claimed to have dreamed the details of the crime, but later, under hypnosis, he said he witnessed 2 men with Sue during the attacks. Using Justin's descriptions, composite sketches of the suspects were created by Harlan Embry, an amateur with no forensic art training. It remains unclear whether the law decided to choose him despite access to professional forensic artists from both the Justice Department and the FBI.
That seems weird.
Seems very weird. The sketches describe 2 men in their late 20s, early 30s. One was between 5'11 and 6'2 with dark blonde hair, and the other was shorter, between 5'6 and 5'10 with black greased hair. Both were reported to have worn gold-framed sunglasses. Seems like an odd choice for glasses, right? Speculation about the murders being ritualistic or drug-related, thankfully, was quickly dismissed by Plumas County Sheriff Doug Thomas, who confirmed that there was no drug paraphernalia or illegal substances in the house. Tina's disappearance was initially treated as a potential abduction, which prompted an investigation by the FBI. However, April 29th, 1981, reports indicated that the FBI actually backs off from the search as the California State Department of Justice was managing the investigation effectively, making the FBI's involvement not needed. I don't know about that one either.
I don't. None of this seems to be adding up.
A thorough grid pattern search was conducted within a 5-mile radius of the Sharps' home, utilizing police canines. Unfortunately, these efforts yielded no results. 3 years later, it's April 11th, 1984, a bottle collector stumbled upon the cranium and a portion of a mandible in Camp 18, located near Feather Falls in Butte County. I was going to say B-U-T-T-E, but I'm an adult. And I'm not going to go there. You're giggling, not me, just for the record.
I was giggling at the adult comment.
Oh. Approximately 5 miles from Feather Falls, California, June 1984, forensic pathologists confirmed that the remains belong to Tina. Shortly after the discovery, the Butte County Sheriff's Office received an anonymous call identifying the remains as Tina's. Fortunately, the call was not documented at the time, Meg. But there was a recording of the call that was later uncovered at the bottom of an evidence box by a deputy assigned to the case, revealing new information in this ongoing case.
It's also sketchy.
Everything seems sketchy. 2004, Cabin 28 is demolished. There's a 2016 article by the Sacramento Bee. It was revealed that Martin Smart had left Keddie and driven to Reno, Nevada shortly after the killings. While there, he wrote a letter to his wife, Marilyn, reflecting on personal struggles within their marriage. He then concludes the letter with, "I've paid the price of your love, and now I've bought it with 4 people's lives." In a subsequent interview, investigator Mike Gamberg noted this letter had been overlooked, in air quotes, during the initial investigation, was never submitted as evidence. He obviously then criticizes the quality of the early inquiry, stating that even a new recruit from the police academy would have done a better job. I think I agree with him.
Yeah, same.
Additionally, a counselor who regularly met with Smart alleged that he confessed to the murders of Sue and Tina, claiming, "I didn't have anything to do with the boys." Smart reportedly told the counselor that Tina was killed to prevent her from identifying him, as she had witnessed the whole thing. Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how counselors work and all that stuff, but I would have to imagine, I know there's that confidentiality thing, but if it's something like that, I would think that they would have to be mandated to say something in a murder investigation.
You'd think.
I don't know, but if you happen to be a lawyer or a counselor, why don't you chime in? Let us know. But there was another suspect, Meg.
Oh.
A suspect with a much harder name to say. John Bobede? Bobede? How would you say that?
Bobede.
Bobede. We're going to go with John. Old John, who was staying in a neighboring cabin that was near Smart, allegedly had connections to organized crime in Chicago. He passed away, though, in 1988. March 24, 2016, a hammer matching the description of one Smart claimed was missing, discovered in a local pond and collected as evidence by the Plumas County Special Investigator, old Mike Gamberg. Then there was a Plumas, am I saying that right too? Plumas? Plumas, yeah. County Sheriff Hagwood, who was 16 years old at the time of the murders and knew the Sharp family, stated that the hammer's location suggested it had been intentionally placed there rather than misplaced. I mean, that's obvious. Hammers are getting thrown. Right. Hammers don't natively, one, go on boats, two, just end up in a pond. I would have to imagine you're hiding something. So good job. Gamberg also mentioned that 6 potential suspects were under investigation. Again, this is in March 2024, 2016, several decades after. Let's fast forward to April 2018. Gamberg then announces that DNA evidence recovered from a piece of the tape at the crime scene matched that of a known living suspect, potentially bring new leads to the case. Yeah. As we sit here today, the Keddie Murders remain one of the most haunting, unsolved crimes in American history. The quiet beauty of the Sierra Nevada still hides the secrets of the dark night in house number 28, which obviously was torn down, and it holds memories, though, that just will never fade. The families of Sue, John, Dana, and Tina, they're still out there searching for answers, and the town of Keddie is left to wonder. I think just like a lot of us, is this case ever going to be solved? I mean, we all hope that perhaps someday the truth will emerge, but until then, we're left with the shadows of what happened on that terrible April night. Was it a crime of passion, revenge, or something more sinister? Who else was involved, and why did Tina have to vanish, only to be found years later in a field? These are questions that are going to just have to continue to linger long after this podcast ends. So obviously, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Keddie murders. If you have any thoughts on this? Theories? We'd obviously love to hear from you. Comment on any of the shorts, the YouTube video, the comment section. Email us. Do whatever you want. It's 2024. There's lots of potentials to get a hold of us. But what do you think, Meg?
There's so many things that don't add up.
So many things. And it seems like they have the guy.
Right.
And if it was of a living suspect, that the last evidence in 2018, it should end the suspect of the whole Chicago guy that came up and had ties to whatever who passed away in 88. I mean, it seems pretty obvious. If a guy wrote a note and a guy said something to a therapist, all right? I mean, you don't just come up with that, I wouldn't think. But maybe there's a cover-up job, and maybe he's the fall guy. I mean, he said he didn't do anything with the boys, just the girls. So I don't get it. I don't get it. And you know, we're more thankful and doing all these shows and stuff too, where technology is good. We don't have to hear the struggles, the bad things, you know, with the terrible police work at the crimes and stuff. But unbelievable. But that's all we got, Meg. You know what else is crazy?
What?
We have one last spooky episode next week.
Yes.
To be done, or one more? Like, yes, we got one more.
Yes, we got one more.
Yes. This one, the next week's going to be a little bit longer. Should we give them a spoiler and tell them what it is or not?
Sure.
Next week, we are going to be traveling to a different state. We're going to be traveling. It's going to be another murder one. And it's going to involve, let's just say, a hotel in a little room. 1046. That's all you get.
Okay.
It's one of the weirdest stories that I've ever heard.
I can't wait.
It is very spooky. Spooky indeed. So that's all we got. We'll be back next week for another episode of the Your Town Podcast. Check out the friends of the show, Vermont Flannel. Go to vermontflannel.com. Use code BeardLaws24. Go to Copper John's Beard.com. Use code BeardLaws. You can have a sweet mustache, beard. Get some ball wash. Get some moisturizer. You get some stuff for your hair. You've been digging the new shampoos and moisturizers and stuff. It's not just for men. Because that's a brand that we're not just for men. That's for hair dye. Check out Fix Vodka. We are sipping on some Fix Vodka right now, and it's pretty good, isn't it?
It is.
They had to go out and fix the vodka because, you know, why have all the stuff in there that gives you a hangover the next day? Nobody likes that. So thankfully, our friends over at fixvodka.com fixed it. And I'm fixing to have another one after this, potentially. Last but not least, make sure actually, there's two. Check out the Highest Peak if you're in Potsdam, New York. The Potsdam Good. And you guys can get your picture taken in front of the cool grass wall like I did, and we'll share it on our socials. And one of my newest favorite ones, Shinesty. I got some sweet undies. They're pretty cool looking, right?
They are pretty cool.
Got the underwear, the socks. She's a little peanut butter and jelly on this one, but it's good. And I'm not going to say it, but they're the bulge enhancements. They're pretty nice. But got the hammock. We got the pouches. But that's all we have. That's a wrap on the episode. There's no better way to say goodbye. Check out the friends of the show, but you're our friends of the show, and we can't thank you enough. We'll be back next week for our last spooky episode. Take care, everybody.
Bye.